Yeah, so credit card skimming. So that's the topic for today. And again, Ebony, thank you for stopping by, just hooking us up with your presence and just providing a nice counterpoint to some of these things that we're about to talk about today. And so credit card skimming. So what caught my attention? I was talking to you about this a little bit earlier, but essentially, I'd go to the gas station, get some snacks, get some drinks and things like that. And a couple of times over the summer, the card didn't work. Specifically, when you inserted it into the POS, the little terminal, it didn't work. And I was forced to do the swipe thing. And, transaction went through and I went about my day. But then something in the back of my mind said, something wasn't, right with that. Why would it not work? There doesn't seem to be a legitimate thing, or maybe, something that shouldn't have happened like that often. So I started researching, and I knew about credit card skimming, and people gleaning and taking information off of credit cards and stealing it, but I didn't know the exact mechanics. And it turns out my instincts were on the right path. And what that meant is, based on my research, the card that we get nowadays, it contains that chip, and everyone should kind of be familiar with that chip. That chip provides a safer form of transaction versus traditional credit cards back in the day, or debit cards, where it was just the swipe action. And what that means is this: the information that is on that card, my name, my account number, my card number, my CVV number, that information via the chip is sent securely to that POS terminal, and that POS terminal and that store and that business can confirm that I have the money to buy those bag of chips, the soda, etc., without actually learning that information. That information is sent in an encrypted format. If you use the swipe function, that magnetic stripe that's on the card contains that same information, but it's not encrypted. And it's available to be stolen, basically, with the right devices, or the wrong devices, I should say, from a consumer perspective in play. So, yeah, and I found some crazy stats and about this whole commerce, this whole economy of stolen credit card data and stolen credit card information. Just very mind-blowing information.
Wow. So just from trying to go and stick the chip, it not working, and having to slide or swipe it, that caused your spidey senses to start tingling, and you're just like, this doesn't seem right here?
Pretty much, because, when you, for me, sometimes, I'll think about things at a much more deeper level than necessary. And, I just remember, I used to be an auditor a long time ago, and two or more is a pattern. That was the phrase. So when it happened the second time, that's when the two or more kicked in, and I immediately detected a pattern. And I said, wait a minute, what is that? Why would it not work? This is a perfectly valid card. It's not like it fell in the mud or anything like that. Why would it not work? In two different locations at two different businesses, something's up. So I'm not saying that that's what took place, but that's what triggered me to go down this path, so to speak.
Wow. That's kind of scary too. If it happened, you're actually inside of the business. So, does that mean that store owners can be in on it? It's part of some type of, mafia money ring or something? And I only bring that up because as I was getting over my cold or whatever, I kind of fell deep down a hole of the 5 mafia families in New York. And that's so fascinating. So now that I'm thinking, they kind of, they had a decline. This could be the way that they get their feet back up, to get back into the game with, taking more white collar crimes.
Well, it's funny you say that. I don't have any official information on that, but if you look at like some of those documentaries on Netflix and other places, as far as I know, those entities, those infamous entities, did go down the path of more, white collar crimes and things of that nature. So that very well could be the case. What I have found though is whether it's those specific 5 families or or just in general, there are networks of individuals that operate in multiple states, and both in the real world as well as in the digital world on some of the dark web forums. And there's a couple of forums I have in my notes I'll bring up in a second. But there are networks of individuals that help to make these operations go from micro to macro. And the number of transactions just in one store, if you think of one store in a high traffic area, how many people use their card to buy, gas, chips, and et cetera, and think about all those credit card information, all that credit card information being stolen and used for, some of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah. I mean, since it's, spurred you to look further into it, is it something that's on the rise? I mean, what was it, just a thing of curiosity that, stroked your curiosity to look into it? Or are you hearing more and more stories about it and hearing from friends and family that they're having issues with their identities being stolen or their financial information being stolen? Like, is it a real concern nowadays? Is it an epidemic happening? Is that epidemic proportions yet?
Yeah, I would say it's on, I've just only looked at it very briefly, but I would say it's definitely a legitimate concern and definitely something that's rising. So it's going in the wrong direction. It's going up. And there's a couple of stats. So there's a couple of forums, a couple of dark web sites. Let me get my notes up here real quick. There's one called Meow. And the naming of that is actually, maybe I'll get into that a little bit later. That name is actually a play on someone that's in cybersecurity. But that site, I don't know if it's up now, and I'm definitely not advertising it, but it's one of the largest underground stores for buying stolen credit card data. And over the years, from like 2015, 2016, up until now, the numbers have been rising dramatically. So in 1 year, it was like 1.1 million. Then the following year, it was like 2 million, and now 7.6 million in a year in terms of number of credit card thefts or credit card information that has been stolen from individual accounts. Wow. And yeah, it's an operation. And they run these sites, they run this operation like a legal entity. If you go to a site like that and you purchase some credit card information so that you can use it to buy whatever or resell or do whatever with that information, if it turns out that the information is no longer valid or the card is no longer in use, they have like a 30-day guarantee money back.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's honor among thieves. That's surprising. Surprised, not just like, you get what you buy. It's just, no, all sales are final, but no, there's 30-day money back guarantee. That's, wow, very honorable.
Yeah, and I'm same thing. I'm completely thrown when I saw that. I could not believe that they actually offered those services. But yeah, they provide some sort of money back. They provide like some sort of guarantee and assurances because they want to keep having repeat business. And I guess
we've got like terms of service or something.
Yeah, it's branding. It's you come to us because our stuff's good, and even if it's not good, we'll take care of you on the back end. So even in dealing with theft, there's like a customer service aspect to it, which I found completely fascinating.
What if customer services, they come to your door and they break your legs? Like, it's like, oh, that didn't work. We'll be right there to remediate that for you.
That's so old school. They I don't even know if they do that anymore. I remember I was watching The Sopranos one time, and the two old school heads, not the main characters, but they go to like a cafe or they go to a coffee shop, and they basically are telling the poor guy behind the counter, look, if you don't invest in some sort of protection, bad things might happen. And this is right around when things start to become really, a corporate situation, not mom and pop shops. And the guy just says, you're going to have to call corporate on that one, So
it's like, you break my legs, they'll just send someone else in here tomorrow with some new legs. Like,
yeah, there's nothing I could do. This is like, you have to speak to corporate when it comes to the funds. And the mobsters were so old school, they couldn't even process it. They just walked out befuddled, like, okay, I guess we're not doing that anymore.
Right.
But yeah, so I found some stats just so we can have like an understanding as to some of the mega numbers we're talking about. 2021, I believe, 32,204 reported cases of credit card fraud, according to the Federal Trade Commission. And these next two are from the Nielsen report. In 2018, about 24.26 billion was lost to payment card fraud worldwide, of which the US sustained 38.6% of the world's reported payment card fraud. And so I dug a little deeper into that, and it just, like a lot of things, we're just behind, whether it's like, our broadband infrastructure is just not on the same level as other countries. Same thing with this, other countries have a widely installed infrastructure of only accepting those, they call them EMV, Europay, MasterCard, and Visa chips. And I guess those are the three entities that combine their technologies to put that chip onto the card. But those other countries make it not only that those cards have that chip, but that merchants and people that take transactions in the real world, they process cards with the chip and only the chip. Whereas in America, there's a lot of situations, especially ATMs, where it's just stripe only. Mm-hmm. And because we don't have that aggressive stance on making that transaction more secure by taking advantage of the built-in encryption technology, it leads to us taking almost 40% of the world's credit card fraud losses.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see both sides though. I mean, if you enforce the chip across the board, then you kind of hurt the mom and pops, or, say you just have like a pop-up shop, or you're selling something at a fair and you use the little, square swipe thing or something, it kind of puts a dent in entrepreneurship for smaller businesses. But yeah, I don't know if someone could come up with a way to help bring everybody into the technological fold, like the higher standards, but without immense cost to people who can't afford it, that probably would be the ideal scenario.
Yeah, there is a pain point for these businesses to upgrade their infrastructure so that they can provide that more secure transaction.
But infrastructure is such a fancy word for a mom and pop. They're like, infra who? I mean, they're like, I'm just trying to pay my bills. Like, what?
That is true. But you can also look at it as, if more people were aware and this type of thing became more prevalent in the forefront of people's minds, it's like having a website that doesn't have the lock, or, not having a website. It's just one of those things. It's like, you don't come off as legitimate if you don't even provide this basic security. We're still not there in terms of looking at it the same way, we look at the website lock, but I would say it's something that would make you stand out, especially if you're providing those pop-up shop type transactions where you want to use the swipe. If you can find a way to kind of maybe get something that can process that chip, it might be a little bit more cumbersome, but it might be worth it and might make you stand out amongst all the other vendors in that area, especially if it's like in a street fair or something like that.
Yeah. I think for security-minded people like us who care about that stuff, but your average shopper might just like, can I buy it or no? Like, I don't have any cash on me. Can you take this card? But I mean, to me, hopefully the better thing to do would be to just, for consumers to adopt the mindset that everything's hacked. If I'm not using cash, if I'm using a card, just assume that they can get the information and they could duplicate it and then, go off and buy a bunch of gift cards or, do whatever it is that they're trying to do with my stolen information. But yeah, there's a way that you could just, I mean, I personally just, I don't like to use my debit card because, again, it is attached directly to your funds. You use those funds to pay for your credit cards and everything else. So, and credit card companies, they're super easy about just refunding you. You're like, oh, nope, that, easy dispute. Okay, here you go, money back if you're not doing a whole bunch of them. So to me, it's just, if you can use credit cards, have all the alerts set up. If you spend $1, make sure that you get an alert pop up for that $1. And I mean, another thing is for my mom, even I was like, turn off overdraft protection. If you have exactly as much money as you need in your checking account to pay your bills for that month, and after that, have it either really low amount or zero, and that's all you can get out of it. So if someone tries to go and, charge up thousands of dollars, denied. So I did just live like everything's hacked. We're all hacked. Everything's hacked. You let the credit card companies deal with it.
Yeah, you gotta let the credit card companies deal with it. Those are some of the recommended best practices. Making sure you use credit, not debit. When you use debit, that's a straight auto draft out of your checking account. When you use credit, that's credit. And that can kind of be negotiating back and forth. And most credit card companies have that zero liability protection. Whereas even if they do offer protection, and they do when it comes to fraudulent debit transactions, the money's already left the account. And now that time frame for getting that back, and we live in a society where a lot of people live in check to check and, don't have 2 weeks, don't have, whatever that time frame is. We need that money now to pay rent in about a couple of days. So, use that credit card, try to use a credit card. I've done this a long time, but use a card with a low balance, a spending balance, I should say. So, not the main car that you can turn around and buy like, a 2022 vehicle with walking out the door, but something that has a smaller credit limit so that even if, they somehow get that information, it doesn't, take you down in terms of your main card. And then also turn on those notifications. Some people like have notifications at high dollar amounts because they want to catch the high dollar. But what you really want to catch is not the high dollar. You just want to catch the actual incident itself. Mm-hmm. If I'm sitting here home all day and all of a sudden I get an alert that my card was used at a Wendy's or McDonald's, as that, $5, I don't care. Why was it used at that point? That's my main concern. So those notifications I think that's a really, really good idea. And just, let the credit card companies deal with it when it happens.
Yeah. And I've had my checking account compromised, and it's a lot harder to remediate that situation than to just get a new credit card. Like a credit card, they'll just send you out a new one, but someone gets into your checking account, you got to go close that out, open up a new one, get a new debit card. It's like you need new checks, new everything. So it's as little as you can use a debit card. It's just less hassle. And plus you get cash back with most credit cards. I know some debit cards have cash back, but credit cards have amazing cash back deals. So like for that reason alone, from security, cash back, just debit cards, they're kind of too much of a hassle. It's if something happens to it, it takes a lot more to remediate the situation than it does with a credit card.
Yeah, in this country, you're almost penalized for using a debit card versus a credit card. Not only do you not get those extra features like the cash back on transactions or the zero liability, and not having the money, come out of your account right away, but, just things like getting a rental car or something like that, sometimes they frown upon, a debit card versus a credit card. So, you really, if you have that ability, some people don't have, access to a credit card due to whatever their credit situation is. But if you have the ability to use a credit card on those transactions, especially when you're out in the real world and inserting the card or swiping, you should use that credit card and make that your go-to versus your debit card, and use your debit card sparingly because that is a direct link to your checking account.
Right. But what about contactless versus chip? Like, which one would you go for?
So contactless is probably the same level of security from my research versus the chip. Both provide that encrypted messaging to the terminal, the POS, point of sale terminal, so that you can be rest assured that your information is not being pilfered. The contact list, I do feel for some reason, my instincts say it's actually even more secure because you're not physically interacting with one of these devices. So for instance, even if you're still using the chip, right? Some of these devices, you need to insert the card all the way. And if that's the case, there may still be a magnetic stripe reader that you can't see in effect. And okay, it can't get it through the chip, but doesn't matter because it captured the entire stripe. Right. So the contact list is probably the best form of security. The only thing you got to keep in mind is it is wireless, so you have to worry about someone wirelessly stealing that information, and that is a thing. However, that individual will have to be really close, like an inch or two away from the card with their
uncomfortably close.
Uncomfortably close, right?
Like, why are you so close to me while I'm trying to pay?
And at that point, your own real world personal space security will kick in, and you know that should do the trick. But the main thing I would say is whether it's contactless, whether it's with the chip, or it's with the stripe, the swipe of the stripe, don't let your card go out of your sight. That's the other thing. So you're at the drive-through, here's my card, right? The waiter, take the card. And that's when, you know, now you just, you know, you're crossing your fingers at that point, trying to, you know, because I've seen some of these videos. I did some of the research for this episode, and these people are very smooth, you know, like right in front of you, they'll do it, like swoop, and they do a double swipe on the other device that you can't see, that's kind of underneath the register, so to speak. And just like that, they got your information. You can use the chip, you can use whatever it is you want to use, but once that card leaves your hand and goes to someone else, then that person could potentially, you know, take that information, and it's a second, 2 seconds max.
Right. That's something you kind of can't prevent. Like you mentioned the waiter. I mean, you're gonna follow them to the little, you know, kiosk thing when they check out. I mean, I guess if you want to be that person, I don't know that I'm bold enough to do that. Like, let me just accompany you, just make sure. So that's why I just would live paranoid. I'd just be like, all right, they're probably back there duplicating my card as we speak. Got all my alerts set up. It's a credit card. You know, I check my statements regularly if something weird pops up, which I got into the habit of doing that anyways, because it happened to me twice, like in a couple years time span at like bars. They would fill in, like the drink would be like $10. And then I end up looking at the total and it's like a $30. I'm like, what? And you look at the tip and they filled in a crazy amount for their tip. I'm like, I tipped you, but I did not give you a $20 tip. So yeah, check the statements regularly, have the alert set to, you know, like again, $1. That may seem crazy unless you're doing a bunch of transactions daily. And just, yeah, you know, dispute anything that looks weird.
Yeah, you have to have the reporting mechanism after the fact. And, you know, I recently started doing this again. I want to say daily, but it's like every other day, but literally looking at your bank statements, just to make sure that nothing funny is going on, and trying to, you know, make your, I don't want to get into too much financial advice, but make your purchases kind of in a regular format. So instead of, you know, a one-off purchase here or there, buy everything you need in one spot, like in terms of food, toiletries, household goods, etc. And that way, you know, okay, I don't go shopping on Tuesdays. I didn't use my card on Thursday. So what's this all about? What is this charge? And then have a handle on your recurring charges as well. I would just say in terms of, you know, how to, you know, you're not going to chase down the barista or the bartender, but, you know, maybe you have to go back to old school and just, you know, cash at the restaurants, you know.
Oh boy, I'll admit that's not going to be me. I'll take the hit and just do the disputes. I am not good at carrying cash at all. Like I barely carry cash. But I mean, one good option would be, I do like mobile payments. Like I've been big about mobile payments for the past like maybe 3 or more years. It would be great if everyone accepted them, like most major retailers do, and you can just, boop, do a little tap right there and pay. But in a restaurant situation, I don't know that many of them are, up to that level yet of technological savvy or whatever, that they've updated to where you can just pay with your phone. But that would be really convenient. I love mobile payments, and the chances of that being hacked, I mean, I don't think that's, I think in learning about this too, tokenization, I didn't even realize that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a fantastic idea. Did you come across that when you were looking into it?
Yeah, they're basically not the same exact technology, but the concept's the same. It's the website, the SSL lock. It's, they set it up in a way where the communication is blind on both sides, and only those that need to know. So your bank, Chase, their merchant processor, Bank of America, or whomever is behind their POS, they have the tools, and the POS has the tool needed to get enough information so that both parties can figure out, okay, John's at Starbucks and he's getting another latte and he's getting a croissant. Got it. And that's it. And that information can't be if somehow someone wants to intercept that information off the chip or through the mobile tap, it's encrypted. And that's similar to kind of how the websites work nowadays when you see, HTTPS. Not the same technology again, but conceptually, from my understanding, that tokenization tactic. What really fascinates me, though, is what is done with the information once it's stolen.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cash cow at that point.
Yeah, it really is. And when I started to, do some more research as to what happens, okay, you got the obvious, I'm about to get him a new PlayStation 5, about to get a new pair of LeBrons. You got that type of situation where someone takes the card and goes to stores and runs with it. But there's, another level to it. It can be used for money laundering purposes, or the information can be aggregated. So if I have a card skimmer, and I got to kind of talk about that in a second, but if I have a card skimmer on a POS at a gas station, and let's say it collected information from 100 people over the course of a couple of days, that information itself is of value, and it could be sold for anywhere from $10 to $13 to as high as $45, depending on if it's a combination of the debit information with the PIN, the credit card information with the PIN, etc. And there's these online marketplaces and forums that exist in the dark net, or the dark web, which is the area of the internet where folks don't want to be found. And
only those in the know need to know. Is that what you were mentioning earlier with the bugs and hour thing?
Yeah, that's an infamous site. I don't know if it's still up, because the last information I saw on it was around 2018, 2019. But it's a marketplace. It's a forum. It's ran like a top flight business, except for it's just committing illegal crimes. But it's a forum where people can go to essentially purchase, stolen credit card information. And I'm sure they can, get other things, but that's, kind of the focus of what I was researching.
Yeah, that it's kind of scary, but yeah, again, paranoid life for the win. I mean, just keep everything locked down. Because I remember I saw a story, because again, I just became so obsessed with the mobster stuff. And I'm just like, this would be something they could do. Like, this would get a whole bunch of gas stations that you own, have the skimmers, and then, those people will give their cut to their bosses and on up the line. I was just like, I could totally see a documentary about this. But in trying to figure out if there was a link, there was one guy just last summer of 2021, down in Mexico, this Romanian guy. He was like running this huge operation. I mean, you have multiple people involved. I think all told it was like 20 something million that they had skimmed off of ATMs in these Mexican resorts, in Cancun resorts. And when they caught him, and he started screaming, "My human rights are being violated. I'm being set up." And so it's like a thing of, is he telling the truth? Is he just a reputable businessman that they've now confiscated all his luxury items that he, gained honestly and through hard work? Or is he really the ringleader of this huge scam? Because a guy was found like dead outside of his where he was staying in the car. So I'm leaning towards it was a gang, but he was claiming human rights violations, and he's just an honest businessman who's gotten caught up in the Mexican law and all that. But I was like, this would be a perfect racket. It's just it's begging for the mob to get involved.
It is in a couple of ways, because one, the way it's installed, I might post some links to some clips I saw on YouTube, or actually on TikTok, but I've seen, like, if you go to like the counter, so you get your drink, your juice, whatever, I've seen it installed in under 2 seconds. Like it's like a snap-on thing that just goes right on top of it, and it looks just like it. And if you have to shake it, so every time I go to the gas station, I'm always shaking these things now, like trying to see, okay, is this thing coming off or whatever? Yeah. So it slaps on super fast, and then it can be set up where it can just wirelessly transmit the information to somebody in a car sitting at the pump somewhere. So as far as the honest businessman angle, I would say I would treat it the same way I would treat my taxes. So if I'm got tons of money and tons of income coming in, and someone screws me over and doesn't file my taxes correctly, and the next thing you know, the IRS is at my doorstep, or I'm getting letters. The IRS doesn't really care if I ran into an unscrupulous accountant. My name is the only name that matters on the bottom of that 1040 tax form. So if I'm a business owner, and if I got a POS terminal in 2022, I'm training my staff. I'm personally manually inspecting these things. I'm doing a spot check once a week, twice a week. I don't know the exact time frame or how often you should do this, but you should do this, because if that person says, I'm just an honest businessman, this is not something, someone else put this there, or, I don't know anything about it, my first question as a practicing investigator would be, well, how long has this been taking place? And if we see that this store, this business has, issues with data being stolen for a long time, I'm thinking the longer this takes place, come on, who's not checking their POS after 2 weeks, 2 months, So right. I would treat it like that, whether someone infiltrated your spot or not, you should be manually inspecting it, because now that's a liability. That's a point of weakness for you.
Yeah. Lone hope. I mean, Target got taken, had an issue with that years and years ago. So, and they're a major corporation. So yeah, I doubt they didn't have someone walking around looking at the point of sales every night out at the end of their shift. So it'd be an insider job.
The Target hack, I hate to say this, that's one of my favorite hacks, but it's real messed up. But they didn't hack Target, they hacked the Maytag repair guy. The
company, like the third party company. Yeah.
And then they got on his computer. This person gets into the network to fix the AC or the HVAC or something like that, but the same network also carried the credit card transaction data. And so, but you see that all the time, poor network design, or network design that doesn't anticipate, not segmenting certain data away from other parties and things like that. Yeah, so this credit card skimming thing. And one other thing I saw about it is they also, when you go to the ATM and they tell you to cover the keypad while you type in your number. Mm-hmm. So for a long time, I thought, okay, but there's nobody behind me.
Right,
Is there somebody in the bushes with binoculars? But no, it's because they can somehow, they can open up one of the panels of the ATM, like that little mirror thing, and they can install a small little camera there, and it could observe you typing, 1, 2, 3, 4 as your PIN, as it also, steals the information from the swipe, from the magnetic stripe. So actually cover the thing while you type in your PIN at the ATM. That's actually like sound advice.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that. I was like, tiny cameras. It's like now we're getting into some nation state spy stuff, just for regular everyday people. But yeah, I was like, that was the same thing. I was thinking, okay, there's no one really like right near me. I can just do a little quick little da-da-da-da. But yeah, if there's a camera right there or maybe right above where you're punching it in, yeah, all right, gonna have to cover it up now. And that's, again, if in the next 10 years I use my debit card again, which I don't plan to ever do.
I don't know. I almost look at it as using a debit card as like, no bueno. Spare occasionally. I will say this. I know we talked about the cash option earlier. I would probably definitely recommend the cash option, but I think most people do this anyway when on vacation.
Yeah.
I
mean, hence the Mexican resort thing.
Right.
It's like, I guess get cash before you go, not, trying to get cash while you're there, because they were $20+ million off of just ATMs in the hotel lobbies. It's impressive, honestly. It's just like, wow, that many people were pulling out cash once they got to the country. So yeah, they take US dollars in Mexico. So I don't know, why people didn't just get the money before they left.
Yeah, whenever I travel, I try not to use my card too much, because I'm thinking, I don't want to have issues on the go. If I'm going to have issues, I'm going to have issues when I'm back home. But I don't want to be out somewhere and have to, be coordinating phone calls with banks and stuff like that. So I try to, get my cash ahead of time and go on the trip with what I think is going to be the amount I'm going to spend. Of course, I'm going to end up spending twice that, but that's just poor budget planning at the end of the day. But at least the thought process is there. But yeah, definitely when traveling, I don't think I would be in a situation where I'm at a restaurant and I'm going to give my card and the waiter's going to go off and I'm in another state or another country for sure. No. How much is it? It's $30. Here's $30.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that's when I would have cash. Yeah, is I'd be prepared when I'm, like you said, outside the country. I don't so much care out and about locally, but yeah, that's actually a good point.
Yeah, I would definitely use cash in those foreign scenarios. One of the things I did see also when doing some of the research was these rings of, you mentioned it earlier, but networks of people that are participating in these scams. So it's not just like one or two people. There's people working across multiple states. It could be mafia, it could be a gang, or it could just be a big family of people working together. But and it's a large coordinated effort, and they're trying to get as much as possible in terms of credit card information. And a lot of the times they're not even using it themselves. They're taking that information and they're turning around and posting it online and selling the information on the dark web, because information itself is money. We live in a day and age where information is basically money.
Yeah, I guess if you're doing enough of those transactions, maybe that's worth more to you than actually using the information to buy a bunch of gift cards. And I saw one story, the guy bought like boats and stuff, like a boat and a luxury car. You mentioned, having enough of a credit limit to buy a car. So I guess it just depends on what type of crime you're into. Do you like the thrill of using the information directly yourself, or do you just like to be the broker who just sells it to the criminals? I mean, you're a criminal yourself, but yeah, I don't know what floats your boat.
Yeah, it depends on what type of thrill you're seeking, and what's the real thrill is not getting sleep, because the way the federal government works, at least here in the States, is they're not going after you for one or two. When they bring you in, when they go after you, they'll start 2022. They'll start talking about stuff you did in 2016, and they'll start from there.
And build a case.
Yeah. You can't deny it, because it's like you can't deny these 1,000 incidents You could deny 1 or 2, but what
Yeah.
about the other 998? You know?
Yeah. When the government builds a case against you, once they've served you with something, you're like, oh, because they did their homework. They're like, we're not going to take a chance on this not getting, not going through the court system. So yeah, once they come and knock in, they already know what you've been doing.
Just plead guilty. Don't even waste your time. Just plead guilty.
Right.
They're not even playing. They got years worth of your bad behavior on paper, but yeah. So you have that thrill seeking as well. When I went out to Vegas, I was online at a village called the RF Village, the Radio Frequency Village, and while I was waiting to speak to a speaker after he was done, and I met this guy named Your Way, and Your Way, he might be watching, but he's from Ukraine, but he lives in the Czech Republic. I think that's his current situation. And we're online, so we started talking about this topic because we were in the Radio Frequency Village, and he pulls out this thing called, I believe, a Flipper Zero. And right then and there, the guy gives me his own little TED talk, and he said, look, here's my bank card. He swipes it on the thing, and then he shows me his information on the thing, like right then and there. And you can get these skimmers, you can get these things that can read the information. It's not like it's hard to find. It's just literally go on Amazon and just make the order, and that's that. Now his was more, it wasn't the type that's like the nefarious type, so to speak, like it can be installed and be all hidden. His was just straight up, it was in his hand and you can swipe it right then and there. So obviously you wouldn't, allow someone to do that, but maybe someone working at a Macy's POS while, you're buying your clothes from Macy's, they can do that while, you're not looking. But even the ones that are more clandestine, the ones that go, inside these machines, these POSs, they're not that hard to find. Just a quick Google search, and then you can, make your purchase.
Wow. Yeah, you can buy stuff like that on eBay.
Hey, if you want to know how a voting machine works, go to eBay. They got that stuff there too, So, yeah. But and it just speaks to a bigger thing with respect to, we mentioned that word infrastructure, with ATMs, POS, credit card security. There's such a lag in these devices, these machines being upgraded or having, the level of security that's necessary. I was watching a speech given by an individual, which I can't remember, in which he showed how easy it was to hack an ATM. And this is back in either 2014 or 2016. And when he showed the speech, he said he had already spoken to the banks about this like 2 years earlier, and they still haven't addressed it. And in 2016 is the year I said, right? He mentioned that they were still using Windows XP on the OS for the ATM, and it was just mind-boggling because he was able to get access. He was able to access it 2 ways. He was able to access it physically and digitally, and he just says, he ends his speech by just saying the number of ATMs throughout the world that have this flaw. And it was just like an ungodly number. So, these criminals, they have like a whole world of these devices and terminals and ATMs and gas pumps that they can work with and play with because the security is just not there. The emphasis on security is not there. And the public awareness is definitely not there.
Oh. Well, that's the other thing with the ATMs is make sure you always use the ones that are inside a building. Any freestanding that's, just open to the public, that's another huge risk right there. So get out and walk into the building and hopefully not at night. There's always those stories where someone, they have the ones where you swipe it, you have to swipe it in order to get inside, and then someone follows you in. So situational awareness to make sure there's no one behind you following you in. But if you can go during the daytime hours and go inside the building and withdraw your money that way, that's going to be your best bet when you're working with cash.
Yeah, it is. It is. I was thinking of starting a business of just, I got a couple ideas. Maybe we'll talk on a sideline about these credit card skimmers. But one business I was thinking of was just simply, providing like an audit service or just an awareness service for a lot of these businesses. And what I found in other technology services that I've sold is a couple things. Sometimes the business owner is not aware, although they should be, but they're not aware of these issues, or they are aware, but they don't know how to get to that level that they need to be. And just providing like that knowledge or providing that service of transitioning to a better security. So I think that's something that's out there, free, business advice, for someone that wants to, get into an entrepreneurial mode here. But yeah, I think there's, within this sea of criminal chaos, there are opportunities to both help protect people's financial data as well as, make some money, providing security awareness and more secure financial infrastructure.
Yeah. You actually said security awareness. Happy Security Awareness Month, Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Happy Security Awareness, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, indeed.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why they chose October? Is it the Halloween thing?
You would think so, because it's freaking scary when someone steals your information. Because had that happen a few times. I forget why I wrote an article about it. I know it started back in 2014 with CISA, or not with CISA, or was it CISA? Yeah, it was CISA, and the other organization, I can't remember the name. It's like NCA or something like that, like National Cybersecurity Alliance or something. It was a presidential decree, and then every year thereafter, they just got the same thing, a presidential and congressional decree. Why October? I don't know. I don't know why October specifically.
I'm gonna go with the scary thing. I'm gonna go with the zombies, all those terms. I'm just gonna kind of lump them in together. But yeah, it is a scary thing. Whenever you get your information taken, your money stolen, you feel a certain level of violation. So it is very scary and it's very triggering. Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I'm on your site now. The real reason Cybersecurity Awareness Month matters. There was a line here that I saw, and I just wanted to bring it up. Here it is. With increasing reliance on technology for everything from simple communication to complex financial transactions, there are more opportunities than ever for hackers to access personal information and cause harm. But thankfully, there are simple steps that everyone can take to strengthen their online security, plus one controversial strategy to stay safe. So I'll put this link in the description and the show notes here on the site, as well as on YouTube. But go to cybersecurityresourcesforwomen.com. And there are some tips to help, have, just like a modicum of safety and security, and feel that you're at least, taking back control and having some power over your own personal security with respect to your data and devices. Again, that's cybersecurityresourcesforwomen.com. And you'll see an article, The Real Reason Cybersecurity Awareness Month Matters. It gets into it, the history of it, and some of the best practices that you can start to implement if you haven't already, to have a more security aware lifestyle.
Yeah, thanks for the plug. Yeah, I know it's a long URL name, so I did end up shortening it to csr4w.com. That'll redirects to cybersecurityresourcesforwomen.com anyways. But I know that's a long URL name. Didn't realize it till later. I was like, that really is long. But the theme for this year, I believe it's like cybersecurity is about you or something like that. They really wanted to focus it on the theme being around you, the individual, the person, everybody. Because I think, even with parents, they think like, oh, that's just, you'll take care of that for me. Or, my son or daughter or niece or nephew, they'll take care of my computer issues. But no, everybody is responsible for their own security, physical security, cybersecurity issues, or, taking preventative steps, because we're all connected. So if, your information gets linked, that can cause a domino effect where it's going to affect this person, that person, people in your family, people in your neighborhood. We're all connected. So if we, I mean, hackers are, it's gotten out of control. So it's like the best thing we can all do as just individual people is to safeguard our own information as much as possible, so that there we have some type of prevention and protection against just the mayhem that's happening out there. I mean, it's the freaking wild, wild west, this day and age. As much as far along as we've come, it's kind of scary, the stuff that can be found about people out there. So
yeah, it's privacy is done. That's out the door.
Yeah.
Unless you decide to move into the mountains somewhere, your information, your likeness, now your face, you don't fly anywhere if you don't want your face on record. But that's done. But that doesn't mean you quit on the job, that you don't.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You don't just give up. You still you do what you got to do to make sure that your financial, your personal information data is safe, and then also put some safeguards in play. If you're not buying a house, or you're not applying for a car loan, freeze your credit. Why is it open? Things like that to help mitigate an attack in case you do get compromised. I kind of have that approach where I stopped a long time ago with the whole I hope I don't get hacked or whatever. It's more like, okay, do I have the things in play in case I do get hacked? Because it's kind of inevitable,
Right. Yeah. And so that CISA, they have a list on their website of basic things you can do. And I tried to outline the same in my article, just like bare bones, basic things that everybody should have in place to protect themselves, because we can't wait for the IT person or, brother, sister, son, daughter to take care of it. There's just really simple things that everybody can do that will just, again, help keep us all safe. Like my main thing is, that's just my paranoid personality, but the grid, I'm like, please, I like internet. I like power. I like running water. Like, if we can just keep all of it going, our nice, comfortable daily amenities, people understand that, hackers can get in and compromise those things, release exploits, and you want to hold the government ransom for billions of dollars. You want me to turn your electrical grid back on? We got to do something. We got to prevent that from happening. I like having electricity. It's really a convenient thing.
This is a whole nother episode. But I definitely, I'm on that same wavelength as well. For some reason, I guess I'm attracted to like those stories about the power lines going down or the gas main. Like a couple of stories real quick. I remember in Massachusetts, there was a situation, I want to say in 2018, where like 50 homes blew up. Ooh. And it was like a gas situation. And the details were very not a lot of details instead of causes. And so the conspiracy theorist in me is like, yeah, because they got. That's what happened, And so I'm thinking like that. And then also, a couple of years ago, was it 2020? I think it was 2020. Yeah. I remember I would go to my favorite bar to get wings, and they didn't have wings anymore. And then it turns out like chicken wings was gone. And it was like, that wasn't just there. That was like Wingstop was now Thigh Stop. And so I'm like, so what does that mean for hacking? Well, someone hacked the train lines, or they messed up the logistics or something like that. And it just caused a whole ton of chaos to the point where there was like no chicken wings in the area or something like that.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, this is really hitting too close to home now. You messing with the chicken wings? Okay.
Yeah. It's like, all right, now we need someone to do something about this.
Exactly.
Out of control.
About to write a letter to the congressman real quick and just say, hey, get on that.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm very, I noticed those things. But there was one other hack story. There was a wind farm somewhere, and I'm not sure, did they know that they were hacked? They suspected they were hacked. They brought in a pen test firm, and they realized they were hacked, but they weren't stealing data. Instead, they were using their compute processing power to mine cryptocurrency. And at the same this is what happened. They called the security firm because someone had upgraded their firmware on their devices, and their devices were patched and were being like supported, and they didn't know who was doing it. And so the pen test team was like, wait a minute, your security is being augmented?
Without your knowledge?
Without your knowledge? And it's like, what type of hack is this? But it turns out they wanted the stuff to work because they were using it for the compute processing power for the blockchain mining. Yeah. So yeah, there's all types of weird power line, infrastructure, SCADA, supervisory control systems hacks out there. But on a not so funny note, yeah, it is scary because, you're talking about like traffic lights or air traffic control, or, like those 50 homes that may or may not have, some sort of, hack behind that. Right. It is real scary when those things are, kind of up for grabs.
Yeah. I mean, these stories are always so fascinating, but yeah, it's fascinating until you're in the story and then you're like, oh yeah, that time I went for a whole month without power and in the middle of the winter, Texas. But yeah.
Texas. Why don't they just get the solar panels? I don't get it, but I'll leave that for another day. But yeah, so like Texas. Okay, so everyone check us out. This video will be on YouTube. We got some other videos on YouTube for Tech or Die. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on various other podcast directories. Make sure you go to cybersecurityresourcesforwomen.com. You can also, I believe is there a URL redirect? CSR4W.com as well. So if you just want to type that, that'll redirect you right to the website as well. So you can get those cybersecurity awareness month tips. Articles are real simple read. You can employ all of those within a day or even less time to step up your own internal security. Ebony, thanks again for stopping by. And
thanks for having me.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.
All right.